When you make your way out to Camp McCarran, you might stumble upon Thomas Hildern. Hildern, who is a doctor, works for the NCR, but he's not just any employee. He's the Director of Operations for the NCR's Office of Science and Industry. He's a former member of the Followers of the Apocalypse, and he has a very interesting quest that he can give us. Mr. Hildern will tell us about a place in the Mojave Wasteland called Vault 22. He tells us that this vault is home to some research that could be very beneficial for the NCR. The NCR is facing a food crisis, and they need everything they can get their hands on in order to avert such a crisis. He wants to task us with going to Vault 22 and taking any research we can find there and returning it to him, in hopes that he and his team can help the NCR. He will pay us handsomely for our work. So, it seems like a pretty easy task. And after finishing our conversation with Dr. Hildern, we will start the quest, There Stands the Grass. However, as we leave, we will be confronted by Dr. Angela Williams, and then we will learn that not everything is as it seems. Dr. Williams will tell us that there have been several teams sent to Vault 22, but none of them have returned. And a short time before the arrival of the courier, a scientist by the name of Keely went to the vault and is now missing as well. Angelus warns us about the dangers within the vault, and will then let us go on our way, letting us decide to do what we want. So, we shall make our way to Vault 22. And upon arriving at Vault 22 in the Western Mojave, we find a very shocking scene. A verdant entrance with overgrown vegetation. A very odd sight in a nuclear wasteland, let alone the Mojave Desert. Something has gone terribly wrong here, and there's only one way to figure out what happened: by delving in to the ruins of Vault 22. Equipped with our best set of power armor and a flamethrower, we make our way into the inner depths of Vault 22. The entrance is still partially open. Upon entering the vault, we will find a small camp to our left, with some plants, a duffel bag, a mattress, and a terminal. Upon reading the terminal, we will learn that this used to be Keely's camp, and it appears that she has since left this camp, but this was her initial base of operations for Vault 22. And after reading the terminal, we can loot from the camp. There's not much in the duffel bag, but some stuff worthwhile. There's a bed for us to rest up before our long journey. There's a copy of Programmer's Digest sandwiched between two pre-war books. And as we make our way into the next area, we will find various fungus and plants overgrown throughout the vault. Now, right in front of us is the vault elevator, and this elevator is unfortunately broken. However, if we have 50 repair, we can actually fix the elevator like so. But, for the purpose of this video, we will not be utilizing the elevator, even though it makes transversing the vault a lot easier. And then we make our way down to the second floor, oxygen recycling. And then on this floor, we can find a laboratory that contains various plants. Many of them are heavily overgrown at this point, as we can see this tree growing inside of this room. Not your typical view within a vault. As we go into the next room, we will find even more plants that have been here for God knows how long. All of these plants appear to be in good condition, so perhaps they're still receiving water and nutrients somehow. And then in this room, we can also find a terminal that talks about a noise complaint. Apparently, there's something in the air duct that is making noise, and several vault dwellers have heard the noise. Something weird is definitely going on here. And as we make our way to the back of the laboratory, we will find a room that was again used by Keely. This appears to have been her second base of operations. On the terminal, we can find several terminal entries talking about some of the purposes of the vault. It appears that this vault was a place dedicated to researching plants, and it would appear that the researchers here were attempting to play God with plant genetics. They wanted to cultivate a green paradise, where the issue of hunger and famine were a thing of the past. But as is evident by the abandoned nature of the vault, something has gone terribly wrong here, and the only way we can figure out what happened here is to go further into the vault. Moving on to food production, the third floor of Vault 22, we can start to piece together what happened. Hiding in the brush, a monstrosity, but a monster that used to be human. This spore carrier used to be human. And now we can see what happened. The researchers who tried to play God lost control of their experiments, and now we have an infection unlike any other seen by mankind, only seen in science fiction and horror movies before. But now, and within Vault 22, it has become a reality. And as we make our way further down the third floor, we can find a lot more overgrown plants. The vault seems to dim. There are fluorescent lights abound, and we can find another terminal with more entries from Keely. Keely, in these entries, talks about how she found the bodies of the scientists that used to live here. However, these bodies are overgrown with some kind of form of lichen. It's unclear how a person becomes infected. However, she believes that the lichen doesn't appear to be contagious to ghouls. But obviously this is more of an assumption. Now, we also have to assume that the infection spreads slowly and is only caught over long periods of time, since, as so far, the courier appears to not be affected. And as we make our way further down the third floor, we can find more spore carriers. These spore carriers appear to have not been active for a long time, as it appears they lost function of their muscles, unable to attack us quickly. We have to scan the brush very carefully, and using flame weapons, we can easily deal with them. And next to these spore carriers lies a terminal. And on this terminal, we can learn that the researchers were initially successful. They had good yields for their crops. However, we learn that Dr. Peters became sick and that he was beginning to miss work. On this entry, we can see that they criticized his work ethic. But little did they know, this illness was the beginning of the end. Later, we can learn that guys in pest control set up a sample of a substance of one of their specimens to attract insects. And after this, quite a number of staff began to show symptoms of some sort of viral infection, and they have been ordered to stay in bed and to recover. And in the next entry, we can see that things take a dramatic and dark turn as Dr. Peters has passed away from illness. Just a few days ago, they were criticizing his work ethic, thinking he wasn't really that sick, and now he is dead. And next to this terminal, we can find a food additive, which is required for the unmarked quest, Not Worth a Hill of Corn and Beans. As we continue to make our way to the back of this floor, we will eventually find a room with a locked door and 2 terminals. On this first terminal, we can find about some kind of commotion happening in the cave. There's definitely something in the cave, and the vault dwellers were fighting it. But we don't really know what it is, and we cannot access the cave from this door because it's been sealed shut using the terminal in the overseer's office. So if we want to see what's inside the cave, we'll have to first go to the overseer's office, which is further into the vault. And in this room, we can see some crops, which we can assume were part of the experiment, and then of course the locked door. But like I said, we cannot access it. So we must keep working our way further into the vault. And as we make our way further down, we will find one more spore carrier. We are now on our way to the 4th floor, or the common area, the living quarters for the vault dwellers. And as we come down here, we can find some truly horrifying scenes. Back towards the entrance, we can find a barricade that was put together in a rush on the staircase. Who knows what they were trying to accomplish, trying to prevent something from coming up, or trying to prevent something from coming down. And as we make our way into the main room of the vault, we can hear the dying breaths of the vault as it slowly malfunctions and it descends into ruin. The main room is heavily overgrown with some kind of trees, and we can only imagine that there are several spores waiting for us below. And of course, in the common area, there are restrooms, and we can see that not even the restrooms are spared from the overgrown. And in one of the stalls is a spore carrier. Who knows how long this poor soul was in that bathroom? And then we can find a projector that has been on for God knows how long, projecting God knows what. And the overseer's office, we can find it abandoned, but abundant with plants. Throughout the overseer's window, we can see the ruins of the vault, and then on the terminal, we can begin to unlock several rooms within the vault that will surely help us figure out what is exactly going on here and what happened to Keely. And as we make our way downstairs, we can find what appears to be a kind of bar. There's a first aid box with some pretty minor medical supplies, along with a very stylish Nuka-Cola refrigerator. In the next room over, we can find what appears to be a cafeteria that is a mess. And then we can find an entertainment room with some pool tables and, of course, more plants, along with another terminal. This terminal has been used by Keely, indicating another place where she made her base of operations. And on this terminal, Keely talks about how the people within Vault 22 succumbed to some kind of airborne infection, and that she is going to test the air to see if the infection is still within Vault 22. And on the following entry, Keely states that she found what she believes the particles that killed everyone in the vault. They seem to be some kind of spores, and they are still in the vault. She believes that this constitutes a serious danger to the people of the new California Republic. As we head down to the main floor of the common area, we can find several spore carriers waiting to fight us, but we can make very quick work of them using our flamethrower. And after killing the spores, we can head over to the utility room. And in here, this is where maintenance would have been, we can find some of the issues within the vault. First, the strange noises. They sent a team to inspect it, and they could not find the source of the problem. But the second one is very interesting. There are reports of a possible gas leak, and people are having coughing fits and other respiratory issues. While they didn't really find any gas, they did find interesting residue on the filters throughout the vault, and that they sent them in for inspection and that they changed out the filters. Again, an airborne pathogen. After the utility room, I headed over to the clinic, and this is the area I really wanted to check out because I knew this would have a lot of information about the infection and about exactly what happened in Vault 22. Before looking at the terminal, I decided to loot, but found very few medical supplies in the clinic. And after this, I decided to look at the terminal, and we will go through each terminal entry individually. The first entry is titled Case 162, and it reads, Condition: Dr. Peters is suffering from a severe case of pneumonia, the result of the spread of some sort of microorganism in his lungs. I've applied the usual treatment and requested that he refrain from working and stop by twice a day for observation. The next entry is titled Case 164, Group. Update: This entire group showed up throughout the course of the day displaying the same symptoms. They're remarkably similar to Dr. Peters' condition when he first came in a week ago. I hope we don't have a contagion on our hands. The next entry is titled Case 162 Update. Update. Dr. Peters isn't responding to the treatment, or more accurately, his body is actively rejecting the treatment. His condition has worsened, and I'm on the cusp of ordering an exploratory surgery. The next one is titled Case 173. There are several patients on this entry, and it simply says, Update. Another group with chills, a fever, and a terrible racking cough. I'm recommending that they be separated from the general populace. The next entry is titled Case 162 Update. Update. Dr. Peters is dead. His vitals flatlined 10 minutes before he entered surgery. I decided to perform an autopsy immediately and discovered his lungs were filled with some sort of fungal infection. Strangely, the fungus still shows evidence of growth despite the death of its host. I'll consult with one of the mycologists on the 5th level and see if they can identify it. And the last entry is titled Case 162 Update. Update. I don't really know how to describe what just happened. One minute I was closing up for the day, and the next Dr. Peters' corpse sat up and attacked me. I was able to flee the office and seal it, inside until security arrived. But what the hell is going on? If all the recent illnesses are the same thing. And with that entry, we have all the confirmation that we need. Zombies are no longer science fiction or horror. They are real. As we move our way into the living quarters, we can find even more spore carriers. We know these things were once human. They were once vault dwellers. And now they're just simple-minded beasts who try to kill us. Who knows who these people once were? People with dreams, people with loved ones, but now they are our enemy. We can continue through the living quarters, but there's not a whole lot here besides spores. So with that, we will make our way down to the next level, level 5. And level 5 is pest control. As we come down, we can find more spore carriers, and we can access the opposite staircase. A very easy lock is really easy for us to open, and on the other side we can find some giant mantises. This is the first time we've encountered this enemy in the vault thus far, so something unique and weird going on. And we can find a dead body next to a barricade and a weapon, the AER-14 prototype. No doubt a very good find, but who knows what happened to this poor soul. Who knows how he died? No doubt it must have been horrifying. And as we investigate further on level 5, we can find a terminal entry about some of the research going on down here. And this terminal entry is key. Here we can learn about one of the experiments that was going on in Vault 22. The experiment revolved around Beauveria mordicana, a fungus that was being designed for pest control. As the scientists were doing their experimentation, the fungus became airborne. The fungal spores gradually spread throughout the vault, infecting the population and turning them into spore carriers. The residents of Vault 22 never had a chance. Next to this terminal, we can find a door, and this door leads to a cavern. This is the same cave from earlier on the 3rd floor. It provides as a kind of shortcut between the bottom floor and the 3rd floor. Here we can find giant mantises, and we can assume these giant mantises are what were causing a ruckus in the air ducts. And using this cave, we can find a blocked off section of the vault. This part of the vault is only accessible through the cave, and back in this locker, we can find 6 HEPA 20 cartridge filters. These are relevant for the quest Still in the Dark. But besides for those cartridges, there isn't much use for this cave anymore. We head back down to the 5th level to investigate. where we now discover spore plants. Apparently, the fungus can also infect plants, turning them into giant carnivorous man-eating plants. As if this couldn't get any worse. We will continue to fight our way through this level. There are more spore carriers and spore plants, and eventually we will find the main terminal of Vault 22, but not without having to fight our way through several hordes of enemies first. On this terminal, we can find the research. All of the research compiled at Vault 22, and we can download it to our Pip-Boy. Maybe it is not such a good idea to take it back to Dr. Hildern, or perhaps that is the right thing to do in order to prevent such a disaster from ever happening again. As we go to the back of the vault, we find a new cave that opens up into a very large cavern filled with giant mantises and spore plants. We will have to fight all of these enemies, putting all of our combat skills to the test. After killing all of the hostiles down here, towards the back of this large cavern, we can find a small indent in the cave, and then there's a miracle.
Took your sweet time. I suppose the NCR sent you? She's such a dear. Not like that pompous little pedant she works for. But that's neither here nor there. These plants have gotten completely out of control. I've got a plan to deal with them, but I'll need your help. Good. Meet me on the second level, and I'll explain what needs to be done.
A friendly face is a very welcoming sight after exploring this vault for so long. And now our quest objective has changed for the first time. We want to meet up with Keely on the second floor and figure out what is the best course of action. Upon returning to the second floor, Keely has a plan.
Good, you're here. Ready to begin? Time is of the essence, so I'll be brief. This place is filled with spores that are toxic to humans, and we need to get rid of them. I've pumped the vault full of a highly flammable gas that, once ignited, should destroy the vast majority of spores. There's one problem, though. The gas becomes semi-inert on exposure to oxygen, meaning the gas will have to be ignited close to where it's being introduced. I need you to find the vents where the gas is being pumped and ignite it. Oh, and survive the resulting blast. Good. Return to me when it's done.
And so Keely has devised a plan to use a highly flammable gas in order to ignite the vault and kill all the spores in it. The source of the gas is back on the 5th floor, so we're going to need some kind of weapon to get this job done. I decide to use a timed mini-nuke, that way it'll give me time to shut this door to save myself. Closing the door was a bit difficult because I had to reload, and you cannot close a door while reloading, which made a very close call, but we did survive. And now, the spore and the infection are history. Upon returning to Keely, we have one more issue. The research on the Pip-Boy.
Ah, good. You survived. I was beginning to think you hadn't. You'll be pleased to know that the spore should no longer be a problem. Now all that's left is to ensure that none of this ever happens again. The research that led to these abominations must be erased. I've managed to create a connection to the vault's backup system from here. I just have to remotely delete all the files, and we're done here. Indeed. This should only take a minute. Just a few more moments and... That's strange. The system says that the files were accessed recently and copied to an external source. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? Yes, that sounds like something he'd do. Well, there's nothing for it then. Those files need to be erased. Hold out your arm and I'll have it done in a flash. How do you figure that? I suppose the data here could serve as a warning to other scientists. Tell them what paths of research not to follow. All right. You convinced me. Take the files back to that buffoon. You make a good point. But I still honestly hope you know what you're doing. I've unlocked the door, so you're free to run along now. Although it pains me to say it, I wouldn't have made it out of here without your help. If you're heading back toward McCarran, tell Dr. Williams that she has my thanks as well. Don't mind me.
We are given a few options upon returning to Keely. One is to delete all of the data about what happened here, hoping nobody accidentally makes the same mistakes again. However, I chose that the best course of option is to keep the data, to hope that Hildern knows what he is doing, and to give the data to him. That way, this can never happen again. Obviously, though, it's a bit risky, and while Dr. Hildern might be a pompous asshole, I do believe he is actually quite smart. Upon returning to Camp McCarran, we can tell Angela Williams that Keely is safe, and Dr. Williams will thank us for the trouble. And after a discussion with Angela, we can go to Thomas Hildern and turn over the research data to him. And we are putting a lot of faith in this man, that he knows what he is doing. Is it the right decision? Only time will tell. And with that, that concludes this episode of Vault Delver. The goal of this series is to delve into the various vaults littered across post-apocalyptic America. Vault 22 serves as a cautionary tale about unchecked scientific ambition, and it properly showcases the many horrors within the vaults of Fallout. And for now, we feel a sense of relief, knowing that the pathogen within Vault 22 has been destroyed. Or so we think. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of new episode and new series. We'll be taking a look at several vaults throughout Fallout New Vegas and other places. I know a lot of you in my Unexplored Mojave series have been requesting videos about the vaults, so this series is where to go to find out more about the vaults of Fallout New Vegas, and of course in the future, other Fallout games. Thank you guys so much, as always.